So, a little while ago, gaming website Destructoid.com had an interview with the creator of Monaco, Andy Schatz. In this very long interview, they covered quite a few things, and it was all very in-depth and thought-provoking, like most interviews with indie game developers are, and I'm hoping to give to a gaming website one day. One of the things that I really focused on was Andy's views on console RTSs, where the current ones have failed, and what he would do to create his own. This got me thinking, but before I get on to what I'm thinking, I've got a little excerpt from the interview that I'd like to share. In the interview, Andy said, "I think that to make the first great console RTS, you need to break down the idea. You need to ask yourself, what is a real-time strategy game? Not in the terms of what the tradition within the computer or console world, but what is it at a physical game mechanics level?" Now, I took this idea and thought about what I think an RTS is. He had his own opinions, and of course he's most likely more right than I am, but I broke down RTSs into two very distinct areas. The first one being resource control. So we have a little graphic here. It depicts a map with a blue base and a red base and then 5 resource points. In this scenario, we're going to say that blue expends some effort to go out and get the 2 green resources closest to it, while red just stays in his little base and creates some units or techs up or whatever. Now even expending the resources to get these 2 resources here, the blue one is going to, after a little while, be at quite a huge advantage that just compounds on top of whatever resources red is generating, and it's going to be pretty apparent that blue is going to win this one. So just controlling resources, controlling zones is a very, very big part, and I should say exploration as well is a very big part of RTSs. The other thing is having a good mixture of units. So in this we've got 3 units. We have an infantry, we have a sort of vehicle, a land-based vehicle, and then we have an aircraft. They're very basic units. I think a big part of any good RTS is actually having upgradable units or different levels of units. So I've got here 3 distinct levels. It goes from infantry to some kind of commando to some kind of walking robot, a basic car to a tank to a really big tank, and a biplane to a helicopter to a jet plane. Just having a progressive technology advancement, a constant technology advancement that the players can choose to take up is a big part of RTSs in my opinion. So with that in mind, I'm going to present to you what is basically the very extreme basics of a design document for a RTS prototype for console, but also be on PC, that I plan on making. Now, the first thing we're going to cover is resources. So I'm envisioning that there's a timer running in the background for every player, and that 1 resource is produced every second for each player. These resources can then be spent on both unit production and research. There's a whole continuum of how that's split, so you can do 90 to unit production and 10 to research, or it doesn't matter, just split it up. It's very fluid and allows the player to really pick what they want to do. Units are created in a factory, and I'm going to envision, much like the resources, each factory has a timer, and that factory produces 1 unit every 5 seconds. So yeah, pretty much constantly, just 1 unit every 5 seconds, 1 unit every 5 seconds, blah 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 blah. Just constant units every 5 seconds. Through the research this may be upgraded, but I'll be covering that a little bit later. Once a unit comes out of the factory, it is then going to proceed to what we're going to call a zone. So zone 1, as it pops out of the factory, it automatically walks towards the first zone. Each of these zones then have different rules they can do, the basic ones being go to and stop. So we're going to say that this zone 1 goes to zone 2. Zone 2, and we're going to put zone 2 over here. So then as soon as the player hits zone 1, it'll then proceed to go off to zone 2, and then we'll say that zone 2 is a stop zone. it's quite possible that you could have Zone 2 be a go-to back to Zone 1, and then have the actual units go between them patrolling, and as more units are created at the factory, they go to Zone 1, Zone 2, back and forth. Or you can have them just mill about in Zone 2. Speaking of zones and being in zones, once they reach a stop zone, I should say, is that, so we've got this Zone 3, and we've got a unit, and it's reached this stop zone. What it does there, it doesn't just stop, it actually does some kind of patrolling. So what it does, each zone that is a stop zone has its own sort of zone of control. It's just a radius from the point. As you can see, I'm sort of showing this DesignDoc prototype in a side-on view, but it's actually going to be a top-down game. So from a radius from the center point of Zone 3, the unit will then just sort of wander around and patrol within the zone of control, and that zone of control can be set to a different radius at any point in time, allowing more freedom of movement. But possibly if you've only got one unit, then it's going to be easier for other enemy units to proceed through without getting shot at or something. Then you have extra resources. So resources, and as you can see, it's got a big R, which means it's a resource. They too have a sort of zone of control or zone of activation. We'll say it's at that distance. Then you've got a unit coming in, and it wanders in. Once it hits within that sort of resource zone, then we're going to say that basically, once I get the colors right, that an extra 1 resource per second is given to the player to use as they want. So the 1 resource per second from their first starting position, and then this extra 1 means 2 resources per second. If they split it 50-50, then 1 unit goes to making a unit, and 1 goes to research. And speaking of research, we're going to have a research progress bar, because everyone loves progress bars. So as research resources filters into research, the progress bar fills up and fills up and fills up and goes ding, you've just gained a new research level. The progression of research is going to be, at least I envision, going to be fairly static. So say the first one is you get 5 unit speed, then you go ding 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 and get another research, and then it progresses on. So the next one is you get a new factory to put down, which means doubling your capacity of making new units. And then as another level comes along, then you get 1 extra resource per second. So you've got a new factory producing faster units, and you get to then either research faster or create more units faster as well. And then finally, you see extra unit damage. The list of things to be actually done will fluctuate, obviously, as I pick and choose how you define units and what they do, and how you place down new factories. I'm not even sure that new factories will actually be part of the research, although I think that is a good fit. So yeah, that's the end. Very basic overview of how I envision my real-time strategy console RTS thingy to come about, and stay tuned. I'm going to very most likely post up more of these videos as I figure out and code the game. So thank you for listening. Bye.